Let's get into it, shall we? There's a lot of news today, huh? I mean, Devontae Adams, first and foremost, very interesting, but we'll get into that. Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Tuesday night live stream. Again, over the course of the next hour plus, hour and a half, depending on how long it takes, we're going to be answering questions, whether it is, starter sits going into week 5, but primarily waiver wire questions going into tonight's overall waivers that are going to run. So if you guys have any questions in regards to your upcoming leagues, just let me know who's available, all that kind of jazz. Include your scoring format, what your team currently looks like, so that there's more context as to what we should be, at least specifically targeting. Now, yesterday I did post my waiver wire targets video. The events of last night's games really didn't, include any other potential options, so it'll stand as such with those players that we're going after within the given week. Now, you may play in a smaller league, perhaps an 8-team league where there's more available, potential prospects. People have already dropped, like a Chase Brown or a DeAndre Swift in that format, and obviously you'd be going after them within the given week. But outside of that, again, answering questions, and we'll get into that right now. Again, earlier today, we did drop our Week 5 running back rankings video at a top 41 capacity. Yes, 41 running backs in the video. So if you guys are looking for my thoughts on those players going into the week, be sure to check that out. Outside of that, let's get into answering questions, shall we? I know that, Devontae Adams is definitely a topic of conversation. And once somebody asks me about him and we get to that question, I'll divulge what my thoughts are on the matter, and we'll continue on as such. Stanky Rondo sends in a question, says, in a full PPR pick 2, Addison, Swift, or BTJ? Okay, now, are we picking 2 for this week as in starting options? If we're starting 2 of these theoretical 3 options, that's probably Swift and BTJ as of right now. Based on matchups alone, they are significantly better plays. While Addison has to go to London, also has to take on the Jets secondary, which aren't the greatest matchups. So yeah, Swift and BTJ at the moment. Thank you. Nick Johnson sends in a question, says, got Likely, Andrews, and Ferguson. Got it. Do I drop any? Yes, you do. You drop Likely. And pick up Wicks, Brown, or Hunt. Okay, cool. So let's see here. I got David Montgomery, Breece Hall, and Chubb on my only running backs. Got it. So basically, you're in a position in which you probably need to prioritize running backs. So dropping Likely in order to get either Chase Brown or Hunt. I think it's a matter of priority of what you technically require. Right now, your team requires you have a starting running back within the week. Chase Brown has the greater long-term value because, again, eventually Pacheco will return, while Hunt has the short-term value between now until Pacheco's return. So Hunt is probably the guy that you would go after because that is what your team requires right now. So you'd go after Hunt, you drop Likely. Outside of that, perhaps if you needed wide receiver, I could justify the dropping of Andrews, but honestly, as soon as one of you drop Andrews, I don't know who it is. There's somebody in this live chat or so that is going to watch this stream after it is already, post live and it's sitting in the hall of all the live streams we've gone ahead and conducted. Someone's going to listen to this. They're going to drop Adams, and because they specifically dropped Adams, sorry, not Adams. Adams on the brain. Specifically because they dropped Mark Andrews, that is going to cause a domino effect in which Mark Andrews has the greatest week of his career in week 5. And then, that person will regret it and the rest of us will rejoice. But for sure, for right now, let's go after Hunt for Likely. And then if you can't get him, you do have to Chase Brown second. Thank you. And then you also said $38 of fab left. I mean, yeah, considering the necessity you have for running back, you're probably spending a good chunk, probably like $10+, maybe like 10 to 15. Just depends on the other teams that theoretically could go after him in the current week. Thank you. Prohibit sends in a question, says, who should I use my number 1 waiver on? Wicks or Trey Sermon? I have Jonathan Taylor, but I feel like Sermon will be underwhelming. I have Hubbard as a fill-in for now. Okay, so here's the issue, okay? Theoretically, what happens when you don't put in a waiver for Sermon and somehow, some way, Jonathan Taylor's injury is far more severe than we originally anticipated, and perhaps it requires a surgery in order to get him right, and he'll actually miss 8 weeks. If you don't put in that waiver for Sermon, you're leaving it up to the fantasy gods as to what that Jonathan Taylor injury, kind of holds. Obviously, they've considered putting him on the injured reserve. That's the report that came out yesterday. Since then, we have yet to hear anything, and we don't have to hear anything about him being put on the injured reserve until this upcoming Saturday. Because as long as he's on the injured reserve, before this upcoming week's game, that game will count as one of the injured reserve weeks going forward. So as it currently stands, if I was in your position, yeah, you need to ensure, you have the handcuff to your number 1. If you think he's going to be underwhelming, then you can you can tempt your fate and go after Wicks and see what comes of it. But we know that Christian Watson's not going to the injured reserve himself, even though there was some speculation regarding that. So it does give Wicks a little bit more edge of a value, especially considering you're a Jonathan Taylor manager and you want to ensure that you do not miss out on the value that will be sapped away in case Jonathan Taylor misses significant time. Ray C sends in a question. Ray, I don't see anything attached to your question, but let's see if I can find it in the live chat. Ray C says, Wicks or Dell in a PPR? Should I drop Ridley? Okay. Just objectively speaking, okay? Ridley, okay, let's say Dell's on the waiver. I would drop Ridley for Dell. I would. Am I picking up Wicks for Ridley? If you are in need of a wide receiver for the next 2-3 weeks here to like really give you a boost of potential, especially like, you know, Wicks takes on the Los Angeles Rams. Now, there's nothing that says that Wicks is going to have to produce well. You know, they have Jaden Reed, they have Romeo Doubs. Romeo Doubs plays more snaps. He had like 9 targets the other day. Romeo Doubs is still, you know, one of the primary wide receivers to that offense. So there's nothing that says that Wicks has to perform. But in this circumstance, if Dell's available, I mean, probably bring him on my roster before anyone, because in terms of long-term season value, he is, in my opinion, the most valuable prospect of the bunch. Now, as for, you know, Ridley, again, the quarterback play is just not good enough at the moment. Whether it is Mason Rudolph or, you know, Levis, it doesn't matter. There is no offense there in terms of the passing game. Very similar in the way in which, of course, the Miami Dolphins suffer because of their lack of an offense, because their quarterbacks just, you know, they can't pull it. Prohibit sends in a question, says, full PPR, Legette or Wicks, Lost Rice. In terms of long-term value, Xavier Legette is the guy that you want. Again, with Adam Thielen on the injured reserve for the next 3 more weeks, at least at a bare minimum. And of course, Adam Thielen being an older wide receiver in his, I think he's like 32, 33 now. Considering all of that, Legette is the preferred option of that offense. And considering the coaching staff drafted him in the first round this year, they will prioritize him even after Adam Thielen returns. So Legette is the guy that long-term value we want in this overall conversation. Thank you, Prohibit. Appreciate the question. Moving on to the next question on hand, we have Daniel Barnes, who says, drop Braylon Allen for Chubb and Fields, Goff, or Geno. Okay, between those 3 quarterbacks, Fields, because of his rushing upside in a 4-point per passing touchdown format, is by far and away the most valuable one. Now, if you were playing in a 6-point per passing touchdown format, I could argue that Jared Goff is the guy that I would have on roster rest of the season. That being said, as for your prior question, Braylon Allen for Nick Chubb, I think it's a matter of like, do you have Breece Hall? If you do have Breece Hall, it's probably in your best interest to keep your handcuff on roster just in case anything was to happen. If you don't have Breece Hall and this is just a running back that is going to be in a rotational use once injuries and or bye weeks occur, I wouldn't mind going after Nick Chubb and, you know, kind of buying the lottery ticket of sorts. Not really a lottery ticket. Eventually he's going to return. As to what capacity he is at is to be determined, especially with the offensive line issues with the Cleveland Browns. It's a little sketchy, but I'd be willing to make that move. Thank you. Amazon Steals sends in a question, says, in a 12-team full PPR, 1 flex league, I'm 3-1 currently. We have Jalen Hurts, Montgomery, Ramondre, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Shakir Ferguson, DJ Moore, Devontae Adams, Hawkinson, Mostert, Likely, Dowdle, Jennings, Puka. Trade Ramondre and Adams for Bijan. I would trade Ramondre after this week. And the thing, okay, here's the thing. Okay, Ramondre after this week, once he takes on Miami, he will have a significantly better performance. Therefore, his overall like contributions over the course of the season, there'll be 3 good games and 2 terrible games. At that point, you're probably at a higher value prospect in terms of moving him. As for the trade overall, I don't know. I mean, in this 12-team league, you have Montgomery, Hurts, Amon-Ra, Shakir. You theoretically, if you're giving away 2 players of this caliber, let's say, for example, Adams gets traded to an actual team, okay? Now, what my speculation is that we'll see Adams either end up with the Saints or the Jets. That's what I actually think is going to happen. One of those 2 teams, okay? Mainly because he's probably going to tell the organization, hey, I want to go to these places because those are the quarterbacks that I'm comfortable playing with. Now, of course, another team comes out of nowhere like Washington or the Bills, and they're like, yeah, this is our window. We're trying to hit it now. Then, you know, I don't think he would decline that potential. But as of right now, that's where I'm thinking. And if he goes there, he will be significantly more valuable than where he is currently with Gardner Minshew as his quarterback. Because we have seen, of course, Rodgers and Derek Carr elevate him to be a top 3 wide receiver by the end of a season. So at the moment, I'd wait, see what comes of it. If you want it and you want the deal and you're willing to, just cash in on these players now at their current value rather than what they could be at an elevated state. Let's say Adams. I mean, the best case scenario everyone is assuming is like, oh, Adams gets traded to the Chiefs. The fact of the matter is, I think the Las Vegas Raiders are petty enough and the rivalry is so strong between the Raiders and the Chiefs that they wouldn't do that. Out of respect for themselves, out of respect for the organization, I don't think the Raiders would go about doing that. Like, I feel like if the Raiders were going to trade away their best player, honestly, if they were going to trade away their best player to a team that is in their own division and could theoretically win a third Super Bowl in a row, I think Mr. Davis would literally roll in his grave. Like, I think that would legitimately happen. He would come back to stop the trade from occurring. Like, it is, yeah. Anyway, so as of right now, if you want to cash in on it, I don't have an issue with it. I think Bijan's great, but you might be able to get more in the future. But who knows? Maybe you won't. Moving on to Cowboys 9511 says, I'm in quarterback hell with Anthony Richardson. Should I drop him for Justin Fields? If that's the only thing that you could theoretically drop, then you have to. Because again, there's a chance that Anthony Richardson doesn't even play this week. Young Motivated sends in a question, says, I traded DK Metcalf and Dallas Goedert for Mahomes and Garrett Wilson. Carr was my quarterback, and I just am not a Carr guy. Very well. Funny one. Actually, it's a good pun slash, anyway. I do have George Kittle thoughts. I don't like the idea of trading for Mahomes. Like, okay, you're not a Carr guy, but Mahomes is not that much better. Honestly, he's not. He's consistent, but he's consistently mid. I mean, that's just what Mahomes is. He's gonna put up maybe 16 points per game if you're lucky. As for the exchange as a whole, hopefully it pans out, but it's very much so dependent on Mahomes stepping up. Without receivers, I don't think he's going to be capable of accomplishing that kind of feat. But I mean, yeah, I think DK versus Garrett right now. DK is in a prime position to just continue to outproduce him the rest of the season. So trading away Goddard because you have Kittle is fine, but getting Mahomes is very sketchy. Thank you. Who to claim? ? Says Young as well as a follow-up question. Chubb, Christian McCaffrey, or Brooks? Who to claim? If somebody is on the waiver wire, one of those three, I would pick up Christian McCaffrey. Thank you very much. Bed Bosch sends in a question. Says, I trade Kincaid for Jamison Williams, half PPR. In a bubble, I'd say no. I think Kincaid still has a lot more value to provide. Now, again, if you do have another tight end on roster, for example, you have, I don't know, let's throw out Brock Bowers on your team. I'd say, yeah, okay, that's fine. We can make that move. Thank you. Moving on to Kevin Smith's question, who says, sup, Andrew, in a full PPR, I trade Goff and Olave for Goff and Olave or Myers for Gibbs and Caleb Williams. I have Fields. I have commit. Okay, cool. That works for me. Give me the Gibbs side of that deal. If they would be willing, Kevin, to take Goff and Myers off of your hands and give you Gibbs and Caleb Williams, we will take the Gibbs and Caleb Williams side of that deal. Giving Olave makes it a little bit less sweet, but if you can somehow manage to swindle them to take, Jacoby Myers, hey, let's get that done. Even if you can't, I think the Gibbs side is still the one that I'd rather have rest of the season there. Thank you, Kevin. Corey Miller sends in a question. Thank you, Corey. Corey says, would you trade Evans, Shakir, and James Cook for Hall, Hunt, and Waddle? I think I would. Yeah, I think I would. At the moment, it's very sketchy, but so here's the thing. If you are like-minded as myself, Corey, I do believe Tua Tagovailoa comes back in place. Yes, it's going to take till week 8 for him to come off of the injured reserve, but I do believe he comes back in place. He's stubborn, and he's got 200 million reasons to come back and play football, right? So, with that being taken into account, that is my opinion. Who knows? It may never come to fruition. He may never play again. And if it takes place, that's the risk we are theoretically willing to take. But in this scenario, I don't mind taking that deal. Let's see here. I have Adams, I have Burrow, Cook, Singletary, Chase, Adams, Evans, Muth. Yeah, listen, if you can make it happen. I don't have an issue with it. If you want to just hold, I don't think it's a bad idea to hold because, again, James Cook and Evans are still solid, and so is Shakir. But getting the potential of buying in on the Waddle upside while you're still upgrading running back from James Cook to Hall, you still have some semblance of kind of upside with Hunt in that scenario, and then you get Waddle back at some sort of capacity if Tua returns, great. Otherwise, again, high risk, high reward. This could kill your season. I'm going to tell you right now, Corey. But if you're willing to take it, let's go for it. Again, if you're willing to play with fire, you might get burnt sometimes, right? Everybody knows that. Infinity Ambition says in a question, says in a 14-team full PPR league, I have Kyler Murray, Jacobs, Najee Harris, Kareem Hunt, Jonathan Brooks, CeeDee Lamb, Cooper Kupp, Jordan Whittington, Keon Coleman, Mike Bride, Jonnu Smith. I'm currently 3-1. Should I move anyone? Yes. And Najee and Jacobs have been underwhelming. Yeah, they have been, but Jacobs will get better this week. Again, I'm not going to stop with Jacobs. I will literally take Jacobs to the grave of the season. I'm going to die on that shield. It could kill me. I don't mind. Again, you play with fire, you can get burnt sometimes, and that's what I'm willing to. But again, the team itself, the volume of opportunity he will get with a healthy Jordan Love. It was presented in week 1. Yeah, he didn't score a touchdown, but eventually those performances will build and he'll be far better. But anyway, in regards to your team, Whittington and Jonnu Smith gotta go. Pick up the 2 best available players that are available off waivers. If in fact you don't want to use your higher priority waiver on any of those prospects, just wait for waivers to run. Then afterward, drop Whittington and Jonnu Smith and go pick up other potential prospects. Thank you, Infinity Ambition. Sean Foley sends in a question, says, would you trade J.K. Dobbins for Jonathan Brooks? I would not. I'd rather have J.K. Dobbins as of right now. Again, Chuba Hubbard, the fact that they did not activate Jonathan Brooks leads me to believe that this may be more of a committee of situations, considering how well Chuba has played in the last 2 weeks. Brian Luna sends in a question, says, should I trade Walker for Adams? No, I'd rather have Kenneth Walker rest of the season, especially in a half PPR there, Brian. Thank you. Chiefsaholic sends it. What is the name? Chiefsaholic's lawyer? Is that what it is? Is that the guy that robbed the banks, the Chiefsaholic? Is that what that is? I don't even know. What's the guy last season that used to go to all the Chiefs games and then he robbed the bank in order to buy tickets to go to the game again? I don't remember the name. Anyway, 12-team full PPR, 3-1. I have Jaden Daniels, Achane, Connor, Hill. Okay. London, Komet, Walker, Andrews. Okay. Wow. Higgins, Montgomery. No, not Higgins, Montgomery. Higgins, Hunt, McLaurin, Javonte. Trade for St. Brown, Harrison, or Neighbors. Yes, and yes. Any of them. If they're willing to give you that, I'm assuming you'd be sending away Hill, right? I'll take any of the 3. Thank you very much. Akuma187 says, in a 10-team full PPR, trade away Brian Robinson Jr. / Olave for Gibbs. Nope, I'd rather keep Brian Robinson Jr. and Olave rest of the season. Thank you. Nathan Ray sends in a question. Thank you, Nathan. Nathan says, my RBs are Breece Hall, Jacobs, Hunt, Chris Brown, Chase Brown, and Jonathan Brooks. Check the chat. Oh, geez, Louise. Nathan, you're going to make me go and find... Okay, let's see here. Who would you target at wide receiver-wise? My running backs, should I trade? Turn down DJ and Kenneth Walker for Jacobs, Laporta, Pittman. I feel like an idiot. Separate league. Hold H. Okay. Too many questions back to back. One at a time. So let's look at what the heck you have here at running back. Breece, Jacobs, Hunt, Chase Brown, Brooks. Keep. I don't move anything from those running backs. Now, theoretically, if you were going to move one, you'd have to wait a couple weeks here. Like, unless you're going to trade Breece Hall, which will get you the most value in exchange, Jacobs is going to be sold for pennies on the dollar based on how he's performed as of late. So you'd have to wait for him to go off against the Rams in order to then move him in a future week. Hunt, I guess, can theoretically be traded to the Pacheco owner, but it's dependent on what they have available at wide receiver as to what you can get in exchange. But then again, with Jonathan Brooks not being activated off the IR, you'd have to then play Chase Brown this week as a potential flex option, depending on how your wide receiver depth looks like, which then leaves you relatively thin to being exposed in the week. So again, you're probably keeping what you have until further notice, because quite frankly, you're relatively thin with... You pretty much only have 4 running backs, but 3 are only playable this week. So you kind of have to wait. As for Achane, do you hold? Again, think about it this way. Tua has already served 2 of his 4 weeks on the IR. So you're halfway there. Just imagine Achane's on the IR, just like last year. For those of us who had Achane, we waited a couple weeks, and then he came back and got hurt eventually. Let's just hope that, when Tua comes back, he doesn't get hurt, and at least he can survive long enough to where once he comes back in week 7, 8, I think, if I'm not mistaken, at that point, we'll have honestly, is it 7 or 8? Let me see here. Okay, so considering he misses 1, 2, 3, yeah, he would have to come back in week 8. If you can survive until week 8, then you keep him. Otherwise, if you don't believe you can survive based on your current record, you got to move him. Dave sends in a question, says, plan to target Wicks, Chase Brown, or Kraft on waivers. Which order to target? I have Andrews. Should I do for Kraft? Unable to trade him. No one wants him. Understood. Okay. I think it's just purely dependent on necessity. I don't believe that Tucker Kraft the rest of season is going to be like a top 12 tight end. Now, I could be completely mistaken, but the matchup against Minnesota was extremely favorable. Now, that being said, there is a chance that Kraft could be a value in certain circumstances, but when we go back to even last season, just think about the Green Bay Packers offense. They have never really wanted to feature the tight end position. The last time they did feature the tight end position was 2020, when they had Robert Tonyan go for 10 touchdowns that year. Otherwise, quite frankly, they don't prioritize tight end in a Matt LaFleur scheme. So when I go back to last season, in the games in which, of course, we had Luke Musgrave injured and Tucker Kraft was the lead tight end, okay? So from weeks 12 to 18 last year, these were his fantasy point contributions. 8.5, 5.2, 8.4, 13.7, 8, 7.8, 4.6, which is significantly better than what is being provided by Mark Andrews. Now, these aren't numbers that are going to blow the doors off, but they're significantly better that could very easily lead to wins in a half PPR. So considering your Mark Andrews situation, assuming you don't have let's say you didn't lose a Rashee Rice or you didn't lose another player at running back and you're not thin at those positions and don't require to have to get Wicks or Chase Brown, Kraft is a pretty good pickup for your scenario here, Dave. Thank you for the question. Jack. I always call you Jack. I don't know why. Jake D'Antonio says, I'm currently 1-3 in a 12-team full PPR league. I traded Diggs, Kupp, and Christian McCaffrey for London Pittman and James Conner and Trey Benson. My running backs were trash. Understood. Yeah, we talked about this the other day. Again, it was a lot of high risk, high reward potential here. Again, considering the whole situation, let's just hope that Pittman continues to be somewhat of value, because London and Connor are great, but Pittman is the biggest, because once McCaffrey comes back, you could lose value if Pittman doesn't actually be somewhat sort of, I don't know, if he's not actually fantasy relevant in any sort of capacity, you lose out on this trade, outright. But considering the current situation of not having running backs, and that's the best offer you could theoretically get, we're fine with it. Gucci sends in a question, says, in a PPR sit 1, we have Tyreek, Achane, DK Metcalf, London, Aaron Jones, Kyron. Not benching Kyron, not benching Aaron Jones, not benching DK, not benching London. So it's Tyreek or Achane. And between the two of them, I would probably be in a position where I'm sitting Achane. And I'd probably still play Tyreek, because there was a ball last night where it was thrown 60 yards down the field, where if Tyler Huntley knows not to overthrow Tyreek Hill, and instead underthrow him so he can come back to the ball. Because the fact of the matter is, when Tyreek Hill runs a route, especially a 9 right down the field, and he's completely just burning, all the DBs are just following him. They're not looking back for the ball. They can't keep up with him. So if you underthrow him and he comes back for the ball, it's either going to lead to a penalty, DPI, or it's going to be him coming back for the ball, making a reception, making a couple people miss, and go and score a touchdown. So yeah, I'm sitting Achane out of the group there. I'm Gucci. Thank you. Mo Metcalf sends in a question. Says, I'm in a full PPR. I'm currently 1-3. We have Murray, we have Hall, we have Allen, Mason, Christian McCaffrey, Marvin Harrison, Kenneth Walker, Stevenson, Montgomery, Jacobs. Okay, you have too many running backs. We got to start moving stuff, man. How do you have this many running backs? McBride, Shakir, Ferguson, Neighbors, McBride. Okay, so your question purely is, trade McBride and a running back for a wide receiver. If so, who? I mean, literally at this point, considering all that you have, okay, you have Hall and Allen as a duo. You have Mason, McCaffrey as a duo. And then you have Kenneth Walker and Montgomery and Jacobs. So as of right now, you could theoretically take Kenneth Walker off of that monster game and move him. And I think you can move him with McBride for, take your pick. You already have Marvin Harrison and Neighbors. So at this point, let's start knocking on doors. Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra, AJ Brown. I mean, at that point, CeeDee Lamb. Let's just go knocking on doors. See if Nico Collins, anybody want to answer? Anybody want to open the door? Because one of those teams definitely has Mark Andrews. And those teams are in shambles. So they'll be like, oh my God, I can get McBride and I can get K9 and still, I'll take it. And we go for it. Now, if you don't want to trade K9 and you prefer to keep him, take Montgomery. And you're good to go. But otherwise, Jacobs right now, again, you'd be selling for pennies on the dollar. I don't think anybody would take him in that scenario. If they would, then you give him. But otherwise, you might want to wait a week, let him go off against the Rams, and then theoretically move him after that. Thank you, Mo. Appreciate it. KLYZM. Kills him, I'm going to assume. Says, hey, Andrew, I'm currently 1-3. I'm in a 12-team full PPR. I have one quarterback and 2 flex. I need help deciding on a direction. My team is quarterback Jaden Daniels and Jordan Love. Wide receivers are Garrett Wilson, Kupp, Rice, Waddle, Shakir, Wan'Dale Robinson, along with my running backs of Gibbs, Connor, Moss, and I have a tight end, Kincaid. Okay, very well. So you're looking for help on deciding on a direction. Well, losing Rice, and then also the injury to Kupp, and then also Waddle losing Tua leaves you, and then of course Garrett Wilson not being as good as we thought he would be, has left you extremely vulnerable. So your best wide receivers are Shakir and Wan'Dale Robinson right now, legitimately, which again, you can survive within a full PPR. Again, they both can be serviceable enough to where they can still help you win games going forward. Now again, in this scenario, right, we've waited long enough for Kupp. Kupp will probably return, if I'm not mistaken, after this bye week. Probably after the bye week, right? So that would theoretically be week 7. You can wait for that, assuming you're not going to get, strung down by a bunch of bye weeks. Again, Garrett Wilson is going to be on bye in week 6. So is Kupp theoretically, so he won't return there. Waddle is going to be unusable until week 8, until Tua's return theoretically. So you're going to have Shakir and Wan'Dale Robinson there. Let me just check something real quick. Let's go NFL bye weeks. I'm actually curious what the bye weeks look like for all 32 teams in this scenario. So when do the Bills have a bye week? The Bills don't have it until week 12. And what are the Giants bye week? The Giants, let's go Control F. Giants do not have a bye week until week 11. So yeah, theoretically you could survive with those two without having to make any moves. Now, if you would like to, you can theoretically try to move Garrett Wilson, Cooper Kupp, Waddle in the meantime if you want to go get a better wide receiver. But I mean, you're 1-3. Yeah, you kind of have to almost. You could try to sell Kupp. That's probably the easiest 1-2 move at the moment. Because, again, Puka has injury. Kupp eventually will return because his injury isn't as severe. And people know the potential of Kupp. And they can actualize it. So, at the moment, Kupp is probably the sell. As to what you get, obviously you're looking for the best available wide receiver you can possibly get in return. So, I'm not going to buy low on players. Like, you would actually have to go bring back a legitimate player. Like if I'm going to throw out names at the moment. Oh God, let's see. Would somebody with Deebo Samuel give him to you for Cooper Kupp? I doubt it. But you can definitely knock on the door and try. Otherwise you're knocking on, Deontay Johnson doors, Chris Olave doors, Drake London, Devontae Smith. Well, Devontae's on a bye week, but you can survive with that. Let's see. Zay Flowers, but there's so much risk inherently in that. You might have to go, well, yeah. That's where I see it as. Those are the kind of names. Stephon Diggs door, maybe. I doubt it. So, yeah, that's what you theoretically have to go after. Otherwise, you just hold on to what you have and just pray. Because really, you cannot move those running backs. You need to have them because you need the 2 and then you need the flex going forward at the moment. So, yeah, it's either move Kupp or hold on for dear life. Brian Colorado sends in a question. Says, PPR 2 quarterback league. I got offered Geno, Sutton, and Christian Kirk for Evans. I have Love, Fields, DK. Okay. So, I don't understand why you need Geno, theoretically. If you want the 3rd quarterback for the bye weeks and there's nothing available on waivers, then you make the deal. But unless that's the only reason you make this deal. because otherwise I'd rather just have Evans over Sutton and Kirk. So you'd only do it just for the quarterback depth. If you have the room for the quarterback depth to take 3 players for 1, then you make the move. Otherwise, you keep it as is and you're good to go. Thank you, Brian. All right, Giggs sends in a question. Says, Andrew, should I drop Ayuk, Akers, or Dobbins for someone? Drop Akers. Thank you. As for what's available, DeAndre Swift, beautiful. Let's pick him up. My starting running backs are currently Jacobs and Emmanuel Wilson. Yeah, so you would drop Akers, you'd pick up Swift, and you played Swift over Emmanuel Wilson. Thank you. Andrew Pacina sends in a question. If my computer wants to work, I think I broke my computer, actually. Did it really break? At least this web page broke. I know that my stream's still up, though. That's a good thing. But that web page just broke for me. It shattered. Okay. We're good? We're good? We're good? Yeah, we're good. Okay, cool. Sorry. Moving back to Andrew Pacina's question. He says the following. I have Mahomes, Fields, and Baker on waiver wire. Okay. Who would you go for? In a full PPR, Wicks over them? I have Neighbors, JJ, Kirk, Puka. No, I mean, look, here's the thing. Unless you're picking up Fields, that's the only person that I would comfortably every single week play. I mean, honestly, I could justify playing Baker every week over Mahomes, but Fields is the guy that I'd rather have in a 4-point per passing touchdown league because of that rushing upside that he has every week. So that's who I would prefer to go after. Give me another quarterback so that if Mahomes isn't going to be able to pull it because he has no one to throw the ball to, at least I have another quarterback that can at least carry me in the meanwhile. Abide Los Angeles says, Love or Baker rest of season? Love. Thank you. Mr. Messiah says, I have the first waiver wire. Currently, I'm 1-3. I'm in a 10-team full PPR league. Should I pick up Fields or Wicks? Purdy is my quarterback. Dak on the bench. Okay, so you have quarterbacks. So theoretically, you don't need to make a move. Now, obviously, Purdy, in comparison to Purdy and Dak, obviously Fields presents a lot more rushing upside, which for fantasy purposes is very enticing. You have Adams, you have Marvin Harrison, Ayuk, Khalil. Okay, very well. Running backs, Christian McCaffrey, Mason, Zamir. Okay, so look, your biggest weakness really is just running back. It's not even a matter of like wide receiver. You've got good wide receivers across the board in terms of long-term value. So, I mean, at this point, if I was you, I probably prioritize that wide receiver because you're 1-3. You need to collect wins now. So you prioritize wide receiver. If you can somehow still get Fields, we'll do it. But you're dropping like Zamir White and you're dropping Jalen Warren at this point in order to accomplish that. Just to give yourself Wicks for sure, because if Adams is going to sit out for the next couple weeks here until he gets traded, you're going to need a little bit of a wide receiver boost. Thank you. Anakin says, I'm 0-4. I'm 6th in points. 2 weeks, 130 plus points. Wow, that's actually impressive. 2 weeks under 100. Very well. Hunt, Wicks, Kraft are on the waivers. Who to prioritize? Allen, Pacheco, Tony Pollard, Moss, Brian Robinson Jr., Marvin Harrison, Rice, Ayuk, Godwin, and okay, very well. I mean, look, you have wide receivers, you have running backs, but the biggest weakness that you have overall is probably that running back depth as of this week. I think in terms of long-term value, I think Wicks and Hunt are kind of on the same timeline. Are we picking up Kraft in order to just play him for 1 week? Because you'll have Goddard next week, and then you could just run Goddard for the rest of the season. So I'm probably prioritizing as of right now going after, I'd probably go after Hunt right now, then Wicks second, then Kraft third. But I definitely would try to go after all 3 of them if you theoretically can and if you have enough bench spots available to do so. Anakin, thank you. Mr. Tres 05 says, my boy, would you drop Anthony Richardson for Justin Fields? I would. I think if that's the only person that you could theoretically drop to get Justin Fields, then I'd say yes. But if I could somehow keep him and drop a inconsequential second defense or 5th running back or 6th wide receiver that I don't need and will not be able to roll in the rotation, then I do that first. But if this is what needs to happen, then it needs to happen. Dave sends in a question, says, I'm in a 10-team half PPR, Dak, Lamb, London, Devontae Smith, Rice, Kyron Etienne, Mark Andrews, Brian Robinson Jr., Rashad White, Addison, Braylon Allen. I lost Devontae Adams and Rice. I mean, Devontae Adams isn't lost. He'll be back. Rice, I mean, he's probably, oh my God, he's probably gone. Oh no. Where to upgrade? Players to target. Let's see here. Okay, so Lamb, London are great. So is Devontae Smith. I don't think you theoretically need to improve on that, especially considering you also have Devontae Adams. So you have 4 really solid wide receivers rest of the season. Now, as for running back, you have Kyron and Brian Robinson. ETN is still that X factor that could theoretically have value going forward. But your main priority is getting a tight end. It really is. So maybe you take, okay, hear me out. Maybe you take Davante Adams and the potential that he's providing in terms of like, he's going to potentially miss the next couple weeks, but maybe somebody out there is like, hey, I'm willing to give you Travis Kelce for him. We'll take it. Because at this point, you can't start Andrews anymore. You can't. And you should probably be looking to try to trade for a tight end. Because everything else on your roster looks pretty solid. Like Dak Prescott is somewhat underwhelming in comparison to where I thought he would be, especially considering they're in negative game scripts a lot of the time. But hopefully that'll kind of pick up as we continue on. But yeah, as of right now, addressing tight end. Devontae Smith could be an optional move as well, but I'd rather keep him to be honest. And if I was going to move, I mean, like you could theoretically also take Rachaad White and Addison and pair them up and go and try to trade for a receiver or a running back. I mean, shoot, if somebody wants to take one of those for a tight end as well, we'd also venture down that path, Dave. So pretty much looking for a tight end and using these additional extra depth pieces that you have because it's a 10-team league to be able to accomplish that. The show sends in a question, says, full PPR, drop Pitts for Kraft. I'd like to keep Pitts just to see if I can get anything else out of him. Because again, here's the thing, right? No one would be surprised if Pitts was terrible for the remainder of the season. Additionally, no one would be surprised if somehow he was to pick up his pace and be an 8 to 10 point tight end for the remainder of the season because we know what he's capable of talent-wise. So in my opinion, I would assume that we should, I mean, from my best suggestion, it would be to keep Pitts. Now, if you were like, hey, Andrew, listen, I'd have to theoretically drop a starter. Like, I'd have to drop Christian Kirk in order to get Kraft. Otherwise, it's Pitts. All right, I'm dropping Pitts then at that point and give me Kraft and let's just roll it. I'm not going to drop a legit starter at an alternative position that could be rotated into your starting lineup instead. Death sends in a question. Says, I traded Mahomes, Henry, and Ford for Jaden Daniels and Bijan. Mahomes, Henry, okay, beautiful. I'm okay with that. I don't have an issue with that. Ford, again, is a ticking time bomb of value being, rinsed away once Nick Chubb's at a full capacity. Bijan, Henry, again, relatively similar value. Again, once Bijan is, Bijan scoring touchdowns. And then Jaden Daniels significantly more valuable than Mahomes. So yeah, I'm cool with that. Well done. Nel Santiago sends in a question. Thank you, Nels. It says, hey, bro, I'm in a 12-team full PPR. Keeper kept Richardson for the 13th round pick, and I have his rights for 2 more years. I picked up Geno for week 4. Very well. Do I drop Richardson and pick up Darnold, Fields, or running back slot? No, you'd have to keep him. Again, if it's a keeper league and you can keep him as a 13th round pick in future years, again, listen, if you're going to play like a dynasty, you have to hold on to him. Because again, the potential that Anthony Richardson has in the long term is really high upside. Again, he is the Cam Newton. He's the child of Cam Newton and Josh Allen. He has the mobility, size, and arm strength all combined. Does he have the accuracy? No. But Josh Allen, his rookie year, didn't have the accuracy either. So again, if you give him time to learn and he gets the reps and he gets the games, over time he will eventually be a great quarterback for the future. Now, obviously right now it's not going to cut it. If you're looking to try to win this season and like win now scenario, then obviously, we'll try to go get Fields or Darnold in that scenario, but I don't want to drop Richardson considering the value prospect that you can have of keeping him in a future season, especially if he starts to pick it up and starts to at least be a functional quarterback for fantasy. So final word on it, I don't want to drop him. Try to get anybody else off of your team to accomplish the pickup of another quarterback, theoretically. If anything, you're just dropping Geno and you're going after Darnold and Fields because I prefer Fields more than Geno rest of the season. Okay, Ron Scoff says, drop Pittsburgh's defense for Denver. Defensive rankings this week. Don't have defensive rankings yet. Again, it's relatively early. I don't even have wide receiver rankings, okay? That'll be done by later tonight after the live stream. I'm going to work on that. So defensive rankings in terms of what I feel more comfortable with going into this week, yes, I'd rather have Denver's defense in my lineup. Drew Gonzalez says, would you trade Achane for Mason? I'm 1-3 in a full PPR, only if you were going to get McCaffrey as well. Otherwise, no. Nom sends in a question, says, please check the chat, Andrew. I'm limited in terms of characters. We have Jaden Daniels, Christian McCaffrey, Mason, Mixon, Amon-Ra, Evans, Flowers, Thomas Jr., as in Brian Thomas Jr., Mooney, J-Mo, Dowdle, McBride. I'm 1 and 3. Okay, let me see what the rest of this question looked like. Num num. Control F, num. Sorry, PPR, no problem. Okay, Nom Nom, do me a favor. I think you need to type in the live chat because there's nothing else that I see besides it saying sorry, full PPR. Is there any other like contextual question here? Or is that just your roster you're looking for a suggestion? Once you figure that out, let me know. Just type it in the live chat. Appreciate it. Until then, we'll continue on answering questions, trying to catch up. Again, for those of you who are joining us today, thank you. Welcome. Hope you guys are doing well. Johnny sends in a question, says trade Murray for Hill, Cup, Fields, Darnold, Geno on waiver. Trade away Kyler Murray for Hill or Cup. Yeah, that's fine. I'd go pick up Fields, and I'd actually go pick up 2 quarterbacks, actually. I'd go pick up Fields and Darnold, and I'd have them on roster if you can make that work. But as for who you're trading for, Hill or Cup, I think Cup is theoretically safer because, again, Cup is his own ankle injury. Tyreek, we're dependent on someone else, which is Tua, and his injury. Both are great. Whatever one they want to give you, I'll take. And I go pick up Fields and Darnold. Thank you. Waleed says, do I give Bijan, Garrett, London for CD and Achane? Probably not. I think I'd keep it. No, I don't think. I know I'd keep it. I'd keep Bijan. Thank you. That side of the Bijan deal, I'd keep. Itoza says, drop Dowdle / Adunze for Kirk / Wicks. Need a flex for a half PPR week 5. So, okay. Considering you are in need of a flex, and I would agree with you that the idea of flexing Dowdle is not a comfortable one. I'd be more inclined, especially in a full PPR, to drop Dowdle to go get Christian Kirk and use him against that Yeah, I'd use him against the Colts this week. That's fine by me. Infinity and Bijan says, would you do Bucky Irving and AJ Brown for CeeDee Lamb and Najee Harris? Yeah, I'll take the CeeDee Lamb side of that deal. Thank you. Bob Fran says, do I trade Reed for Chase in a full PPR? If someone is willing to give you Jamar Chase for Jaden Reed, insta accept it. Tell them thank you. Give them a firm handshake and a forehead kiss and be on your way. Thank you. AB23 sends in a question. Says, what should I do? In a 12-man full PPR, my quarterback is Daniels. Okay, very well. Wide receivers are Deontay Johnson, Garrett Wilson, Ayuk, and Terry McLaurin. My running backs are Ramondre, Cook, and Pacheco is out. Tight end is Ferguson. I'm 1 and 3. I mean, look, at this point, Wilson and Ayuk are kind of killing you. So at least as of right now, you're playing Deontay Johnson and Terry McLaurin until further notice. Ramondre is going to have himself a pretty solid week here. So after this week, you probably ship Ramondre after he beats up Miami a little bit. And you kind of have to hold on to Cook because that is your highest valued prospect. Now, if you were looking to try to make a move to try to get more depth on this team, the way it would be accomplished theoretically is by moving Jaden Daniels, but you would have to get a more than competent quarterback in return, along with ample depth of a running back or a wide receiver, which in this current specific situation, you would need a running back as well. So someone would have to give you like Burrow and a legit running back next to him to take Dan. Like legit, well, maybe not Burrow per se, but if someone wants Daniels off me, give me Joe Mixon and give me an actual quarterback that I can start every week. And at that point, you'll have a little bit more oomph to your roster. Omar G says, sell high on Worthy. I'm good at wide receiver. I mean, if you're going to get a running back in exchange that you need, then sure. I don't have an issue with that. But that's if you are going to get the running back that you want. If you look at the overall market at what value is kind of pulling in your league, and you're like, all right, well, I'm not satisfied with just getting like Devin Singletary, and I want players like a Tony Pollard, or I want something of more, later term value, then you would wait a couple weeks and see what Worthy's able to produce. But if you can strike gold now, go for it. Rogo says, what up, bro? Who can I get for Jennings and Mostert? Nobody. You drop them both. Thank you. You can't get nothing out of those. That's not something that you can do. Nom Nom, thank you very much. Says, hi, Andrew. I was able to get Amon-Ra for Lamar Jackson. Very well. That's beautiful. I have Jaden Daniels. Fantastic rest of the season. I'm looking to move Dowdle and J-Mo for London and Jacobs. Beautiful. Okay, cool. If I was in your position, I'd be comfortable getting either of those two, London or Jacobs, whichever one that they want to give you or whichever one that you prefer. Again, you just brought in Amon-Ra, so maybe you don't need as much wide receiver depth in this circumstance. Perhaps you'll be comfortable just getting a running back in exchange. I'll take either of the two, but well done on that trade. Obviously, your investment in Jaden Daniels is pretty much given you the upside that you've presented. So well done on the draft. All right, moving on. After Nom Nom's question, we have the following from Luke C. Thank you, Luke. Says, I have Jalen Hurts on bye week, Cousins, Flacco, Watson, Trevor on the wire. Okay, so if I was to rank them in order as to how I would play them, let's say, for example, Joe Flacco is going to be the starting quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts this week. Flacco number 1, Trevor Lawrence number 2, Cousins number 3, Watson number 4. That's the order at which I would present it. Yeah. Flacco, Trevor, Cousins. Maybe it's Watson over Cousins. I don't know about that. But either way, Flacco and Trevor are number 1 and 2, clear and away. There's a huge gap between those two and Cousins and Watson for this upcoming week. Now, as for the rest of your question, and do I drop Minnesota's defense for Denver? That's fine. I don't have an issue with that, especially considering Minnesota's going on bye week in week 6. That's fine by me. But again, I think they've got a pretty easy matchup. But if you want to swap it for Denver, I have no issue with it. Ty Chandler with no Jones or Emmanuel Wilson. I have Jacobs. Yeah, you would drop Ty Chandler. That's fine for the quarterback. That's fine by me. Flotation Swag says, check Twitter. Thank you. So Flotation, what do we got here? I mean, I'm assuming your roster, as per usual, it's kind of set as is, and there's really nothing to move unless something has transpired over the last couple of days that I'm unaware of. But you have Prescott, you have Aaron Rodgers going this week, which again, we don't love. Then you have Etienne, Singletary, Tucker, Mooney, Leggett, Fryer, Muth, Amari Cooper, 49ers defense. Okay. Yoshivas, Lockett, Lazard. I mean, at the moment, yeah, you keep it as is. There's nothing too, okay, so here's the thing. This is what I'm probably thinking. Off the top of my head, it may be in your best interest to how do I want to do this? I might consider putting Amari Cooper over Mooney and then dropping maybe Yoshi in order to take Eckler out of the IR, then put him in the flex. I'd consider it. You don't have to do it, but that's what I'm considering at the moment. And same thing with even Trey Tucker. I might even consider moving Cooper ahead of Trey Tucker in order to play Eckler in the flex. That's what I'm thinking. But again, it would require you to drop Yoshi if you're comfortable doing so. Otherwise, you keep the roster as is so you can have them all rostered accordingly. Jerome Hill sends in a question. Thank you. Says, I'm currently 1-3 in a PPR. My wide receiver production is low. I have Devontae Adams, Rashee Rice, DJ Moore, McLaurin, Shaheed, and Shakir. My running backs are solid with Henry, Bijan, and Hubbard. Ideas. Yeah. You're going to try to, well, obviously with Rice gone, you kind of either have to wait or play the, hey, I'm going to sell you Devontae Adams because he's going to go to the Jets or the Chiefs. Imagine you're pretty much going to be a salesman at this point. You have to try to sell them. And until you get him off your roster, you're playing McLaurin and Shaheed as your 1-2 combo until further notice because they are the best of your group. You could theoretically hold on to Adams, but considering your current record and the fact that we don't know what this timeline looks like for Adams and a potential trade to transpire, I think it's probably in your best interest to try to move him and try to sell him off of the concept as to where he could eventually end up rather than where he actually ends up. So that's probably my suggestion. We're in the business of moving Adams here to try to get you a little bit more value back now in order to, compensate for the low wide receiver production that we've seen recently. KLYZM says, forgot to mention earlier, is Hopkins droppable? Yeah. DeAndre Hopkins is droppable. Akuma187 says, 10-man full PPR. Okay, how about Terry McLaurin / Brian Robinson for Gibbs? If you have considering it's a 10-team league, if you got a lot of depth, okay, and you're just like, hey, I'm just trying to build the best starting roster possible, then yes, you'd make a move of that caliber. Thank you. Anakin sends in a question, says, trade Godwin, Brian Robinson Jr. for Bijan and Dell. I don't mind the deal. I could get more for Godwin. He has Amon-Ra. Could get Hunt, use him for trade bait. That's probably a better idea. If you can get Hunt, theoretically, and then add him to the Godwin and Brian Robinson, and then maybe steal Amon-Ra off his team with Bijan, that would be the best case scenario. because at the moment, I don't love it because Dell hasn't done anything this year, and he's also been dealing with an injury. And then, quite frankly, just, Bijan and Brian Robinson, like Bijan's going to, let's not jinx it here. I would assume and I would hope that Bijan will be better rest of the way. But giving away Godwin for pretty much free at this point, I wouldn't be so comfortable doing so. If you can get Hunt and you can somehow get Amon-Ra off that team, I'd say, yeah, let's do it. Otherwise, I'd probably hold. Brian Colorado says, I offered them the first question, drop Pitts in Joku. Okay, let me go back up, Brian, so I can see the context as to what you're referring to really quickly. Where is Brian's question? So he says PPR 2 quarterback. I offered. Okay, so you offered Geno's. Oh, beautiful. Okay, that's fine by me. I'll take the Evans side. That's the point. Yeah. I mean, again, I was comfortable with the Evans side, or I was saying don't send it unless you need it. So yeah, if you can get Evans out of that, that's fine by me. I have no issue with that. Cool. And then as for your second question that you just included within this one, it says drop Pitts in Joku. Can we just keep them both? Like, if you can't, then theoretically, depends on if Njoku comes back. If Njoku's coming back this week, you hold them both and you play Njoku. Otherwise, you might have to make a move. I don't want to say objectively right now, one way or the other, whether you have to, drop Pitts, but it could get there if Njoku is not available to play this week. And it would be either playing Pitts against Tampa Bay or picking up like Kraft. I think you might have to go for Kraft. Bentley1781 says, drop Dowdle, Braylon Allen, Bucky, Irving, or Charbonnet for Hunt. Out of those available options, I'm dropping Charbonnet unless I have Kenneth Walker on roster. If I have Kenneth Walker on roster, then I'm then dropping Braylon Allen. If I have Breece Hall on roster, then at that point, I'm dropping probably Bucky Irving. Thank you. Jacob sends in a question, says the following. Couldn't find the question. It wasn't attached to it, but maybe. Jacob says, thoughts on trading Waddle for Garrett Wilson? That's fine by me. Again, it's if you need the wide receiver depth now, understand that, again, Garrett Wilson's going to play against Minnesota this week. Pretty tough matchup. Then, tough to an extent. If Aaron Rodgers doesn't show up, there's a problem. But then he has a bye week. Theoretically, I'm okay with it. But I think if Tua comes back, there can be an argument to be made that Waddle is going to outproduce Wilson for the remainder of the season. You'd only be making this trade now to be able to fill in this week, not next week, because obviously the Jets will be on bye, and then the week after. So weeks 5 and 7 will be filled in. If you needed that desperately, then you make the move. Otherwise, you hold and maybe hit the waiver and see if you can strike gold with some hidden gems. All right, we scroll back up to a question from Corey Miller, who says, I'm in a 12-team full PPR league. Let's see, Corey, really quickly. Let's readjust this whole question. Okay, there we go. And I'm in first place so far. I have Goff, Jones, Connor, Amon-Ra, Olave, London, Kittle, Geno, Brian Thomas Jr., Braylon Allen, Chandler, Bucky, Keon, Coleman. Any moves I should make or any suggestions? Do I drop anyone for Wicks? Yeah, I probably, honestly, at this point, looking at the team as a whole, Goff, Jones. Okay, so considering you have Aaron Jones, you cannot drop Chandler. You have Connor, you have Amon-Ra, you have Olave, you have London, you have Kittle, you have Geno. You have Goff and you have Geno. Goff is on bye, so you have to keep Geno on roster. Brian Thomas is beautiful. Braylon Allen is solid. Bucky Irving is solid. So at this point, it's like you would drop Keon Coleman for Wicks. Now, if you want to hold on to Keon Coleman as that lottery ticket, theoretically, then you would keep him as such and you wouldn't change anything. But if you were like, hey, I'd rather pick up Wicks and maybe even start him this upcoming week in case Olave is not able to go because of his hamstring. Amon-Ra's on the bye, and this would just be a pick up and play this week. Maybe in future weeks, if he gains more value, we can continue on. That's fine by me. But that's a matter of your preference on what you want to do with that lottery ticket of Keon Coleman. If you want to continue to hold it out, you hold it out. Otherwise, you make the swap. Thank you. Daniel Barnes says, would you rather have Jonathan Brooks or Nick Chubb? I think somebody asked me this earlier. Okay. I probably would. Okay. If I could get a guarantee that Jonathan Brooks and Nick Chubb are going to play the same amount of games rest of the season, I'd rather have Jonathan Brooks. Because Jonathan Brooks at least has receiving upside. Nick Chubb with a completely battered offensive line would be a pretty tough proposition to sell to me. rather than Jonathan Brooks, who could theoretically start cooking in that offense. Like at least like Nick Chubb, like maybe he'll get a couple targets, but I know that Jonathan Brooks could very easily absorb the entire receiving workload. So that's what I'd rather have. Now, if you need more of a earlier reset for your running back, someone that can make a quicker impact, technically it's Chubb, but honestly, I think I'd rather just have Brooks. Rogo says, would I be possible to trade Chubb for Christian McCaffrey? I don't know. Go ask them. I mean, I'd say that's impossible, but I mean, who knows? Maybe somebody's dumb enough to do that. I'm Gucci U Polo says, I'm currently 0-4. My bench consists of Singletary, Pollard, Addison, Mooney, Waddle, Dell, Cup on IR. Okay. Do I drop anyone for Wicks? I'm cool with dropping Mooney for Wicks if you'd like to. That's cool by me. If you're going to use him this week, that works. Thank you. Medina 2197 says, I got offered Brian Thomas for Brian Robinson. Is that a good trade? If it's a full PPR, I could justify it, but honestly, it depends on what kind of running back depth you have. In a bubble, I could very much so justify it to an extent. But if it's me and I'm thinking, okay, which one would I rather have? Regardless of what my team looks like, I think Brian Robinson probably has more value rest of the season. But yeah, if you're like, hey, I got a lot of running backs, got a lot of value there. I need a wide receiver. I just lost Rice, or I don't have Cup, or I don't have Waddle or Tyreek. I need wide receiver depth in some sort of capacity. Then yeah, I'm okay with that trade. Rusty Wright says, question in the chat so it could be more clear. Thank you. All right, Rusty, let's see what you got here. Okay, Rusty Wright says the following. 10-team tattoo league. Brown, Dowdle, or Sermon on the waivers. Should I drop Roshan plus Roma Dunze to try it for 2 of them? My running backs are currently Achane, Cook, Etienne, Bucky, Roshan Johnson. Okay. And then you have Hill, Cup, Reed, Worthy, Amari Cooper, Sutton, and okay. So as of right now, the way that I would go about it, considering the way that your team looks, I don't think you need 2 of them. I think you're just fine going after 1. I mean, at this point, you're probably just dropping Roshan for Sermon. That's how I see it. Because in terms of long-term value, Achane, Cook, and Etienne will be the better backs than in comparison to Chase Brown or Dowdle. Now, Chase Brown could theoretically take over the job from Zach Moss, but I think that's still a long ways away. I think you would just pick up Sermon, you drop Roshan, and that would be it. That's the only move you theoretically make. And then obviously you would have that within the number 1 waiver priority. Second would be going after, Dowdle. Then third would be going after Chase Brown in that exact order, half PPR. But I think that's it. I'm keeping Rome as of right now. All right. We move on to a question that comes in from Jacob. Okay, we already took care of Jacob's question. Never mind. King Fantasy sends in a question. Says, full PPR, I need 2. Achane, Ford, Harris, Chase Brown, Algier. As of this week, technically, I'm probably rolling with like Ford. If Warren's out for another week, it's probably like Ford Harris. You could justify the idea of playing Achane, but I think it's sketchy. It's probably Ford and Harris as of right now. Thank you. We move on to a question that comes in from Sven. Thank you, Sven. Very generous of you. 3-1 currently in a 12-man half PPR league in bye week. Team in bye week what? Bye week hell, maybe? Team is quarterback. Okay, so we have Hurts, we have Amon-Ra, we have DJ Moore, Olave, Deontay Johnson, BTJ, Sutton. Running backs are okay. Yeah, you are in bye week hell. Gibbs, Moss, Chuba Hubbard, Steele, Warren. Okay, you're in a pretty good spot though. Kittle have to drop 2, drop Steele and Warren for Baker. Yeah, that's good for me. That's perfect. Again, you'll still be able to survive this week. Olave, Deontay are your starting wide receivers. Even BTJ potentially in that flex spot. You still have Chuba Hubbard and Moss to go this week. So yeah, you're good to go there. Drop Warren, drop Steele, pick up Baker. Thank you, Sven. Appreciate it. Michael sends in a question. Says, I'm 1-3 currently in a 10-team half PPR league. We have 3 wide receivers, 2 flex. Anthony Richardson, Olave, Higgins, Wilson, Saquon, Etienne, Hall, Javonte, Kelsey, Roshan, Leggett, Polk, Quentin Johnston. Any moves? Kelsey has to stay. As for your quarterback, that needs to be moved. I'm dropping Jalen Polk off this team, and I'm going to pick up a quarterback. Olave stays, Higgins stays, Wilson stays, Etienne's good. So is Saquon, so is Hall. Javonte, again, is like, you don't really want to sell him at the moment. So yeah, at this point, the biggest move that you theoretically make in order to ensure you keep your depth, because again, 3 wide receiver, 2 flex league, you want to keep the depth as is. You just need to improve quarterback. That's it. So Polk needs to be dropped, and we're going after Fields, Darnold, Flacco, something that can at least give you value for this week to start. Thank you. Octavio sends in a question. Trade DJ Moore for Flowers and Braylon Allen. I own Brees. Yeah, let's do that deal. I like that. Thank you. Papa Bless sends in a question. Would you trade DJ Moore and Flowers for Garrett Wilson or DJ Moore and Flowers for Drake London? I have BTJ on my bench. Also, would you rather pick up Wan'Dale Robinson or Wicks? Okay, if you're looking for immediate insert value in terms of like, oh, I need just a 1 week play and this guy is going to, not even just 1 week, let's say I need 3 weeks of solid performances, Wicks can be the guy that immediately injects your team with a high upside. But Wan'Dale Robinson, like season long, rest of season, all the way to week 17, has more upside value because, again, Christian Watson will eventually return and theoretically dig into the overall workload of Wicks. Because, again, they prefer Watson at a healthy rate. But, again, Watson's never been able to stay healthy in his career. So, Wicks, there's nothing that says that Wicks can't just outright win the job. But last season, Watson came back and did supplant Wicks in that circumstance. So, I think it could happen again. That being said, Wan'Dale probably is the better option for you going forward. If I was to make one of these trades, I'd probably go after Drake London. Papa Bless. Thank you. Bentley 1781 says Kraft over Ertz rest season. I don't mind that at all. Again, Ertz doesn't get enough opportunity. Does he get opportunity? Yes. But in terms of the volume at which we would like it to be at, it's not enough for me to say no to that overall, switch off from, Ertz to Kraft. All right. Cheeks sends in a question. Cheeks says, Ford and Worthy for Christian McCaffrey. I have Chubb. I mean, again, if you're going after Christian McCaffrey for the late term value of once he comes back from this injury, if he comes back from this injury, again, I did put this out there like 2 weeks ago. Maybe it was last week, maybe it was 2 weeks ago. There's always a possibility where Christian McCaffrey returns and he splits this backfield indefinitely with Jordan Mason based on how great Jordan Mason has looked thus far this season. And it's a two-headed monster rather than the solo value of McCaffrey. And instead of him being a 25 point per game guy, he's a 13 point per game guy. Either way, he's still going to be of value. If you can afford to give away these two prospects for him, I'm willing to take the risk on it. Jordy Peasy sends in a question, says, in a half PPR 12-man league, my quarterback is Purdy. My wide receivers are DK, Neighbors, Ladd, Deontay. My running backs are JT, Henry, Najee, Rashad White, Brooks, Charbonnet, and I have Kincaid at tight end. Do I need a quarterback? Kind of, sort of. Deontay and Najee for Daniels and Hunt. Deontay and Najee for Daniels and Hunt. Okay. I'm fine with the deal, Jordy, as long as you can guarantee that you're going to be able to pick up Trey Sermon. And then probably drop Charbonnet. That it has to be done. You have to get Trey Sermon. If you can't get Trey Sermon, it's a little bit sketchier. Because again, Hunt eventually disappears. But if you can, I'm okay with the deal. Thank you. Mr. Messiah says, related to previous question, which running back should I trade for? Let's go back up to your question. So the previous question, right, was I have the number one waiver. I'm 1-3 currently. Full PPR 10-team league. Fields or Wicks. Yeah, okay. So we mentioned so we already took care of that. Now, as for what running back should I trade for? Okay, yeah, because you're moving Adams theoretically, potentially. Again, what you should get is going to be very different as to what people are willing to give you. If you can theoretically get, there's a lot of names I'm going to throw out, okay? But if someone wants to give you somehow, some way, Jacobs, or they want to give you Mixon, we take it and we run away and we run to the hills and we never look back. But outside of that, there's no way someone's giving you Connor. There's no way someone's giving you Aaron Jones. We'll take those, but there's no way that someone gives you that. We'll take a Montgomery. We'll take, those kind of potential options. We'll take a James Cook. We'll try to buy low on a Breece Hall or a Bijan. But again, those things are probably out of the realm of possibility. But those are the kind of names that I would like. Outside of that, I'm not going and knocking on an ETN door with Davante Adams. I'd wait. Thank you. All right, let's see here. We move on to a question after Mr. Messiah. What's the next question here? Okay, so after Mr. Messiah, we have Bean Productions, who says, full PPR, in the flex, ETN, Worthy, Pittman, Hunt, Sermon. ETN, Worthy, Pittman, Hunt, Sermon. In the flex this week, again, I already posted the top 41 running back rankings. As of those available, okay, so the only time I'd play Pittman ahead of this entire group is if, in fact, Flacco is going to start at quarterback. If Flacco is the confirmed starting quarterback of the week, Pittman gets the start over everyone. Otherwise, it's probably against New Orleans. Do I play Worthy or do I play one of these other alternatives like an ETN? Yeah, it's probably Pittman or I pivot to playing ETN. Thank you. Rusty Wright sends in a question, says part 2, Dobbs, Wicks on waivers. Okay. Whittington. Okay. Rome/Sutton. Okay, look, the issue with this question, Rusty, is I don't understand what is being conveyed here. It says Dobbs, Wicks, XL, Witt on waivers. Okay, I understand that. Dobbs/Sutton, as in like we're dropping one of those two? No, I'm not dropping either of those two. I'd keep Rome and Sutton as of right now. If you were going to make a swap, it'd probably be Rome for Dobbs though. But as of right now, I think I would like to hold. Again, I think Rome is a really good player. Just give him time. Inderjit sends in a question, says someone is offering me AJ Brown and Ford for Godwin and Swift. I don't really want Ford. I mean, I'd love to have AJ Brown here, but it's a 2-for-1 deal, right? You would be getting AJ Brown for giving Godwin and Swift, which again depends on your running back depth. Now you could take Ford for the next coming weeks, but eventually Nick Chubb will supplant him. Now, as to when that occurs, that could be in week 8, it could be week 9 for all we know. So again, there's still a lot of time between now and then. If you look, by far and away, I prefer AJ Brown over Godwin, but I would hate to be in a situation where Swift somehow finds his stride after this last week and you're giving it away and you don't have enough running back depth to be able to sustain a trade of this caliber. If you can, I'd make the deal. Edward Spray sends in a question, says my buddy wants to trade Mixon and Terry for Jonathan Brooks and Chuba. I will take the Mixon and Terry McLaurin side of that deal 10 times out of 10. Not even close. Rest of my... Okay, yeah. So whatever... I don't know what team you have. It doesn't matter. Mixon and Terry are the guys that I want rest of the season. Thank you, Edward. Alex Sameto sends in a question. Says, hey, how's it going? Should I trade Garrett Wilson for Zach Moss? If you're desperate for running back, I guess you could. But understand, again, Zach Moss could very easily get Wally pipped by Chase Brown. It's something that we talked about in the offseason and it could very easily happen in the regular season. So if you're going to trade away a Garrett Wilson-esque player, I would want to go after Ramondre at very least, or try to see if you can steal somebody's Josh Jacobs off their team, their Travis Etienne off their team, something of that caliber. Maybe Tony Pollard. Again, Tony Pollard and Zach Moss have put up the identical amount of points in a full PPR. Maybe you can steal up Tony Pollard in that circumstance. That's what I would suggest as of right now before I go ahead and make that deal, theoretically, in order to bring back Zach Moss, because again, there's still sketchiness to it. Nick Porter says, in a 10-team full PPR, 3 wide receivers, 1 flex, I traded Reek, Flowers, Worthy for Jamar Rice. You traded him for Rice? What do you know that we don't know, Nick Porter? What do you know? What's going on over there? Because surely trading for a guy that has a torn ACL or supposedly has a torn ACL is not a dub. So, what do you know? What's going on here, Nick? Are you trying to drop us information? Trying to be our source? Because otherwise, that's a terrible trade. I mean, I'll be honest. You traded away Tyreek Hill, Flowers, and Worthy for Jamar Chase, which in a 3 wide receiver, 1 flex league is not great. So, I don't get it. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. I don't want to kill you, but I don't want to completely roast you here. But this is, why are we trading for Rashee Rice? Moving on. D-Nell sends in a question. Should I trade Jamar Chase for Godwin/Bowers or Njoku? My tight end is Pitts. Nope. Keep it as is. Try to go hit the waivers. Tucker Kraft, please and thank you. Otherwise, if they don't want to, you don't want to trade Chase to bring in those options. You will trade another one of your receivers in order to get Bowers. If they want to take Deontay Johnson or Christian Kirk or Pickens off your hands for Bowers, we'll take it. But otherwise, no. Big Poppy 408 says trade JSN for Kareem Hunt. I have Deontay Johnson, Neighbors. Yeah, that's cool. I'm looking at your wide receiver depth. You're good to go. I'm okay with that trade. Again, it's only to bring in immediate value because your RB2 is Javonte. So that's fine by now. Big Poppy, thank you. Alex sends in a question. Thank you, Alex. Alex says, sit one, Chase, Evans, Marvin Harrison, and Reed. No. Do I sit that? Okay. Theoretically, the way that I see it, based on the current matchup, Reed has to play, Chase has to play. Do I play Evans against Atlanta or Marvin Harrison versus the San Francisco 49ers? I don't know the answer until tomorrow. Again, I'm currently kind of in the mindset of putting together wide receiver rankings. Haven't started a single bit. Haven't even watched film. Again, after today's live stream, that's exactly what Andrew will be conducting. Watching a lot of film from this weekend and, of course, figuring out what to do with these wide receivers. In specific, as of right now, I'd say we're probably leaning in the direction of going like Chase, Evans, Reed. Thank you. That guy sends in a question. Says, I'm currently 0-4. 12-man full. Actually, yeah, dude, I don't know. Alex, you're in a tough situation. But hopefully there's no wrong answer. That guy sends in a question. Says, I'm 0-4, 12-man full PPR. Please help. My quarterback is Love or Baker. Bijan, Ramondre, or Irving are my running backs. Puka, A.J. Brown, London, Cooper, Sutton, Dell, Leggett are my wide receivers, and we have Kincaid. I mean, look, your quarterback situation is fine. Your running back's not great. So after this week, you're going to take Ramondre and you're going to trade him away. But only after this week because he will provide value this week. You could theoretically look to try to trade A.J. Brown, but you'd have to bring back like a Nico Collins, Jefferson. You'd have to bring back a top 6 wide receiver. You could theoretically move him in order to bring in like a Neighbors, technically. I'm okay with that, but unless you're moving him for one of those top tier, Amon-Ra's, Lambs, Chase, all those kind of guys, you keep him and you just continue to wait it out. I know you're 0-4. Because you're 0-4, my suggestion is to take Puka Nacua and probably, it's take Puka Nacua to workday and sell him. Try to see what you can get back, if anything, in the current circumstance. Preferably if you can try to get a wide receiver. Maybe someone wants to sell you Godwin. Deli Meat sends in a question. Should I drop Keenan Allen, Braylon Allen, Mostert for Leggett? I would drop Mostert, to be honest. Thank you. Larkin Ellis says, 12-man half PPR. I'm currently 3-1. Is Daniels, Kamara, Brian Robinson, Jamar Chase, London, Garrett Wilson, Bowers. Okay. Is there any moves I should be trying to... No, not really. I mean, again, you could theoretically try to sell Garrett Wilson, but you'd be selling him low in comparison to the value that he could theoretically elevate to where you could sell him for higher. But Kamara, Brian, I mean, like, if you want to move Kamara to go get another running back, you could, but right now there's no issue with it. Like, if it's not broke, why try to fix it? Like, you could try to take Brian Robinson right now and try to go buy out Breece Hall or Bijan. You could try to do it. I don't know if it'll, turn into anything, but that's what I would be doing. I'd be knocking on doors, trying to sell it and trying to upgrade that piece. But otherwise, like Kamara, Chase, they don't move. Daniels doesn't move. Bowers doesn't move. Everybody else kind of can be positioned to make upgrade moves. Like, yeah, they could be, but don't need to. You're in a pretty solid spot there, Larkin. Sheldon sends in a question, says, I'm in a half PPR. Should I trade Montgomery, Ford, Hunt for Godwin and ETN? My other running backs are Kyron, Mason, Chuba Hubbard. Okay, so to answer this question, yes, I'm okay with that deal. Considering I'm looking at your wide receivers and we need the help, I'm okay with that. That's cool with me, Sheldon. Thank you. Jack sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, Jack Baylor, who do you like more on waivers? Brian Thomas Jr. or Kareem Hunt? Brian Thomas Jr., not even close. Like, even if I needed running back, I would still pick up Brian Thomas Jr. in order to even trade him to get a running back in exchange. Thank you. All right. The Murrison family says, would you trade? Goodness gracious. Of course, my YouTube crashed again. Why does it do that so often? YouTube's just bugging recently. The last couple months here have been crazy. Okay. Murrison family, where'd you go? It says, would you trade Mason for Barkley? Yeah, I wouldn't even do it. I wouldn't even blink. Sorry. I would instantly take Barkley in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. Not even. Probably quicker. Right now, the deal's done. I have Barkley on my roster already. If someone asking for Mason and they're giving you Saquon of all backs, the running back that I hold as the number one back rest of season, you insta-take that. Mo Money says, who can I trade players like Amari or Waddle for? I mean, again, it's okay. So here's the thing. Me telling you, hey, you can theoretically try to make this trade doesn't mean that it'll come to fruition, right? Like I would say Amari Cooper, who's had literally one good week the whole season, maybe could be sold for Rachaad White if you get lucky. Maybe could be sold for, Najee Harris, maybe. I mean, really, I don't know if that's even their value. I mean, look, the idea is that Amari Cooper will get better over time and Waddle will get better over time. So you'd have to be buying running backs that are very similar in terms of value who haven't performed well, but will get better over time. So maybe you can sell Waddle for an ETN and someone just like, yeah, I believe that Tua comes back, but you'd have to be really lucky. Otherwise, yeah, it's like a Najee Harris or a Rachaad White, other running backs that haven't played well. J.K. Dobbins, or not J.K. Dobbins, J.K. sends in a question. Sorry, as soon as I saw J.K., I thought Dobbins. Full PPR, 12 team. I have Richardson, Mayfield, Adams, London Rice, T. Higgins, Watson, Taylor Jones, Singletary, Rico, Brooks, Muth. Lost Rice and Watson. Help. I mean, hold London. Let's see here. So you have London, you have T. Higgins. So those you can hold. Again, until Adams figures it out, you have Mayfield, London, T. Higgins. You have Jonathan Taylor, who's injured. Okay, so you're in a really tough spot. You have to move Adams, probably. You have to pick up Trey Sermon. That's probably the scenario we're in. Unless Adams is going to get traded by tomorrow, Adams is, again, one of those guys that you're probably moving in order to try to get some wide receiver value in return, because, again, you've just lost out on Rice. Now, you could theoretically hold depending on your record. I don't know what your record is, but I would assume, considering you have Anthony Richardson, it's not as glorious as we'd like it to be. So, considering the situation, it's probably an Adams in order to try to bring in another wide receiver for the future. Z-Han says, Andrew, your content's the best. Sent a question on Patreon. I don't know if I'll be able to find the question, but I will definitely try right now. Did you send a question, Z-Hens? I'd have to go find it. Like, I have to go do like 7 different things, but I'll try. Let's see here. How do we do this, Z-Hens? Ooh, let's see. How do we want to do this? Yeah, it's not going to be easy. Okay, let's do this. You send a message. Oh, you didn't send it on Discord. You sent it on Patreon. Oh, that makes it even more difficult. Holy. Okay, hold up. Wait a minute. Give me a second here. Can I find it? I found it. Okay. Says, hey, Andrew, I'm in a 12-man half PPR league. I'm currently 3-1. My current team includes the following: Murray, Deontay, McLaurin, Dell, Downs, Jennings, Saquon, Kyron, Walker, Corum, tight ends are McBride and Ingram. I currently have an open roster spot, and I'm open to dropping Dell and Corum. On waivers is Dowdle, Dak Prescott, Leggett, Wicks, Worthy. Yep. Okay, cool. Let's drop Dell. Let's drop Corum. And let's go after Worthy. And let's go after Dowdle. Those are the 2 that I want in that exact order. The third player I would want is Leggett. That's how I would go about it, in that exact order. Now, going after Dak Prescott, I'd only do it you know what? Actually, you're not dropping Dell. You're going to, well, if you're going to use Josh Downs this week, sure. But if you're not going to use Josh Downs gets dropped with Corum for Worthy and Dowdle. I don't think you need Prescott. Thank you, Zach. Appreciate it. Took a little bit of time to find it, but we found it. We're good. All right, Matthew Schutz sends in a question. Says, PPR, trade my Christian McCaffrey, Marvin Harrison for James Cook, Garrett Wilson, and Worthy. Yeah, I'm cool with it. Again, you're not going to get McCaffrey back for another month, if not even more time than that. So yeah, I'm cool with it. Kendrick says, Fields or Burrow long-term? I would say that Burrow is probably the better prospect long-term as of right now. Anakin sends in a question, says he's not budging on Hunt, Godwin, Brian Robinson Jr. for Bijan and Amon-Ra. Okay, I mean, then at that point, I'd be willing to send him Brian Robinson and Hunt for Bijan, or Hunt and Godwin for Amon-Ra. Send him those two offers. DeAndre Warren says, do I drop Mostert, Chase Brown, Benson, or Chandler? You would only ever drop... Okay, so here's the deal. Mostert can theoretically be dropped, but Benson only gets kept if Connor's on roster, and Chandler only gets kept if Aaron Jones is on roster. If you have neither of those backs, those are the first to take the axe. Bob sends in a question, says, half PPR Worthy, Brian Robinson Jr. for Breece Hall and Rashad White. Yeah, I'm cool with getting the Breece Hall side of that. That's again very much so an idea that Breece Hall will outproduce Brian Robinson going forward. White for Worthy, I mean, honestly, I think Worthy probably outproduces him, but I guess the upgrade that you would theoretically hopefully get out of Breece would be able to suffice. And Jake sends in a question, says, Kyron and Shakir for Breece Hall and Puka. 3-1. Yeah, that's cool. I'm 100%. I'll take the Puka side of that. Thank you. Ibrahim says, what do you think about McConkey? I mean, he'll show up every couple weeks. That's basically it. Like, I don't know if he's going to be an every week guy. I'd hope he can be, because I want somebody to be an every week guy for that offense. You know, we've seen it kind of fluctuate. One week it's McConkey, then it's Quentin Johnston, and then it's Quentin Johnston again, and then McConkey this last week. So if they're going to go back and forth, again, he's very much so only startable once you have very thin wide receiver depth, or if you're on a bye week hell situation in a good matchup. Pablo says, in a 12-team half PPR, Fields, CeeDee Lamb, DJ Moore, Jacobs, Komet, K9, Scary Terry. My bench consists of Richardson, J.K. Dobbins, Keenan Allen, Hawkinson, Singletary, and QJ. Okay, as in like Quentin Johnston. Got it. Any trades? CD stays, Fields stays, DJ Moore is going to be too difficult to sell right now. Jacob stays, so does K9. I mean, theoretically, you could try to take Kenneth Walker, go sell him for Bijan or Breece Hall. Something like that. That would be probably optimal if you can get away with it. Outside of that, you don't really have anything to move. You keep it as is for now. Thank you. Let's see. Your Chief sends in a question. Says, I'm in a half PPR. Saquon is on bye. My running backs are Ford, Irving, Allen, Charbonnet, Dowdle. Okay, so we're in trouble is what you're saying. One open bench spot. Dropped Swift last week due to the poor play. Should I pick him up for Algier, Chandler, Justice Hill, or Wilson? Yeah, at this point, out of those available that you have, I'd probably drop... I'd be okay dropping Chandler there or Emmanuel Wilson, either of the two. I'd probably go with Chandler first, though, as the one to take the axe. And you'd go pick him back up. Max sends in a question, says, I'm in a 12-team half PPR. Mahomes, Mason, Christian McCaffrey, Jacobs, Drake, London, I'm assuming. Rashi, oh no, that's not Rashi, that's Reed. Mark Andrews, Diggs, benches JSN, Worthy, Brooks, okay, Leggett. What do you think I should do? Trade my Mason / Reed for Breece and Fields? Nah, we're not trading that. I'd rather, considering you have Christian McCaffrey, Mason doesn't get moved. You would ever only trade Mason if you're getting back a top tier running back. So no, I'd keep it as is, because I don't think giving away Reed for just Fields is worth it. Honestly, I think Reed is going to be extremely valuable rest of the season, especially off of the 2 games he has played with Love thus far this season. It's looking really good. Jade sends in a question, or Jaded TY says, I have Rico Dowdle, Bucky Irving, Braylon Allen. Who should I drop for Justin Fields off of waivers? I have Joe Burrow. If you're going to drop one of these 3, it's Braylon Allen that gets the axe. Thank you. All right. We have technically caught up. How long have we been here for? An hour 26? Okay. So that pretty much is like the range in which I want to kind of hold these streams at, guys. Again, for those of you who are joining us, thank you. Hope you guys are doing well. Again, we'll be back tomorrow with a live stream tomorrow night. Again, tomorrow we'll also have my top 40 something. I don't know what number it ends up being at. Probably 40 flat. Wide receiver rankings, maybe a 42nd or a 43rd if it feels comfortable. But Titua28 sends in a question. It says, Waddle, Swift, Myers, pick 2, flex, full PPR. This week, I'm not playing Myers against Patrick Surtain, and I'm not playing Waddle. So Swift is the only one, and we're going to hit the waiver to go get somebody else. Maybe Wicks. Please and thank you. So yeah, at this moment, that's pretty much where I'm going to call it in terms of the stream. Of course, the web browser crashed again. What a classic. Thank you very much, YouTube. But that's that. Okay. Again, for those of you who are watching, who are members of the Patreon, if you've sent in a question, after the stream concludes, I'm trying to go to answer those right now. Okay. So be patient with me. I'm going to try to get to those. There's a lot of you and one of me, so I'll try to get to it. But for those of you who joined us today, hope you guys are doing well. Thank you again for all the support. Yeah, that's basically it. We're about an hour and a half in. I'll answer a couple more questions, then I'm out. Darren Hill in the chat says, Wicks has 0 points last week. He still competes with Dobbs and Reed. Leggett is entrenched as the wide receiver too. Yeah, you're right, Darren. Yeah, look, in terms of rest of season value, Leggett is significantly more valuable because, again, the competition that Leggett has is Jonathan Mingo and then an older Thielen that's on the IR. Like, because Christian Watson avoids IR, like, that makes it very difficult for Wicks. Very. It's not to say that Wicks is incapable of being a better wide receiver rest season. It's just that there's just more of a likelihood that he will struggle with the competition on his team. So Leggett is the preferred of the two. That's why I have him ranked higher. Mac sends in a question, says, what other trades should I do? I have depth, thanks. Mac, let's see here. So in terms of the way that this team looks, right? I have to wait till Jacobs next week has himself. Okay, so this week, Jacobs will be fine. Drake London is fine. Mark Andrews needs to be improved upon. Like, we are suffering at tight end. So maybe you take Worthy if you're not going to utilize him and you go get a tight end. You try to go sell him for anybody that has been relevant. So what I mean by anybody is I mean literally, I'm going down the list. We want rest of season. We want Kittles. We want Bowers. We want McBride. We want Ferguson, Kelsey, Laporta. That's what we want right now. I could theoretically consider Evan Ingram, but he's not healthy right now, so it doesn't make a difference to go trade for him. But that's what we want. Let's see here. John says, who do I trade for and who to trade? Team is Dak, Gibbs, JT, DJ Moore, DK, Andrews. I mean, you need a tight end, brother. I mean, that's just as easy as that. You have Hawkinson, but at this point, Likely's got to get off the team. Andrews cannot see the starting lineup anymore. And you have to find a tight end. Just like the ones that I just mentioned moments ago, that's what we've got to go after. And we got to make a move somehow, some way to get them because you are in trouble. Like getting 0 points back-to-back weeks, I mean, I'll take the blame for it. That's fine. Like, I don't mind taking the L. But it's just the fact of the matter that the Ravens just do not prioritize passing the ball when they're kicking the shit out of the teams with Derrick Henry. It's just, it is what it is. Didn't expect that to ever be the case for the Ravens because they've never demonstrated that in prior seasons, but that's where we're at right now. Awesome Person says, hi, Andrew. Can you rank these wide receivers based on who I should prioritize picking up off of waivers in a full PPR? Mooney, Dobbs, Wicks, Atwell, Downs, Leggett. Yeah, the way I see it as of right now, the way that I would prioritize it rest of the season, Dobbs number 1, Leggett number 2, Mooney number 3, Wicks 4, Downs 5, Atwell 6. Thank you. Let's see here. ECKZ says, would you trade away out of this bunch of who would you trade away out of this bunch for a running back? And who would you target? T. Higgins, Deontay. Look, Deontay Johnson and Brian Thomas Jr. are the most valuable of the group. So, considering those are wide receivers, I mean, specifically Deontay Johnson coming off of back-to-back weeks of being like a 20-point wide receiver in fantasy, I'm just going to try to go to someone and say, hey, I got a 20-point wide receiver here. He's going to look like this the rest of the way. Do you remember what he looked like when he had Ben Roethlisberger, a decent quarterback in the past? Yeah, he used to be like this. So he's still a good wide receiver. And then try to sell him for like a Brian Robinson Jr. or try to sell him for a Josh Jacobs or, something of that nature. I still want a top-tier option because you're trying to sell high on him. You're not trying to give the indication that he is worth less, even if he is. So we're knocking on doors and seeing if Brian Robinson Jr. managers or David Montgomery managers somehow want to potentially peep open the hole and talk about it. James Cook. We're going after top-tier talent. We're not fucking around and going after the lower-tier guys. Thank you. All right. Billy Roy with the final question of the day says, what's up, Andrew? Dobbins and Pickens for Montgomery. Dobbins and Pickens for Montgomery. In a bubble, okay? In a bubble where there's no context as to what the rest of the roster looks like. Let me check something real quick. in a bubble, no context, I'd probably say yes. If you told me you had, I'd probably go with it. Because I'm going to assume that you only make that trade because you have the depth. You don't make a trade of that caliber if you don't have running backs or wide receivers in an abundance. You must have a stacked roster. So with that with my headcanon of what your team potentially looks like, I'm cool with it. If you have no depth, you don't make a deal like that. Because again, those are 2 starters for your team rest of the season. All right, guys. That's going to cover it. I appreciate y'all. Again, I'll be back tomorrow with my top 40 wide receiver rankings. And then subsequently after, of course, tomorrow night, I'll be live streaming. And then on Thursday, quarterback tight end rankings, along with a stream after the Thursday night game. Friday, we'll also have hidden gems. Friday night live stream. Saturday afternoon live stream. Sunday morning live stream starting at 6 a.m. because the London game starts at 6:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Make sure that you get your rosters lined up and ready to go so that if you're asleep on Sunday morning, the games don't start and you don't get completely, cooked. Either way, again, video came out earlier today in regards to running back rankings for this week, but also yesterday we had the overall waiver wire video. So if you guys are interested in figuring out what I prioritize at what position, I would not change my mind based on what I presented in yesterday's video. That is still the priority as to how it's going to continue on. All right, guys, thank you everybody for watching. I'm going to go ahead and cue the music. Much love. And again, if you're a Patreon member, I'm answering questions right now. See you. Peace.